Sophie's hands trembled as she dialed 911. The 5-year-old girl in front of her had stopped breathing. Blue lips, gray skin, ice-cold room. I need an ambulance now. Child not breathing. Suspected poisoning. She pressed her fingers against the small neck, searching for a pulse. There. Weak but there. She began compressions on the tiny chest, counting under her breath. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Again. The thermostat on the wall read 48 degrees. Someone had turned it down deliberately. But let's go back. Back to where this nightmare began. Back to 3 weeks earlier, when Sophie Rodriguez first walked through the gleaming doors of the Chun penthouse in downtown San Francisco. Sophie needed this job desperately. Her younger sister Maria had been in a car accident 2 months ago, and the medical bills were drowning them both. When an agency called about a live-in nursing position paying 3 times the normal rate, Sophie didn't ask questions. She should have. Mrs. Nakamura answered the door. The house manager was a stern woman in her 60s, with silver hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that seemed to see everything. You're the new night nurse. Follow me. Her voice was clipped, professional, cold. The penthouse was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the San Francisco Bay. Everything was white marble and chrome, spotless and sterile. It felt more like a museum than a home. These are the rules, Mrs. Nakamura said as they walked down a long hallway. You follow Emma's care schedule exactly. No deviaciones. No questions. Mr. Chin values his privacy, and he expects the same from his staff. Of course, Sophie said. Can you tell me about Emma's condition? Mrs. Nakamura's expression hardened. The doctors haven't been able to diagnose it. She's been declining for 8 months, since her mother died. Some think it's psychological. Grief manifesting physically. Others suspect an autoimmune disorder. What matters is that you follow the treatment protocol Dr. Webb has established. They stopped outside a door. This is Emma's room. You'll check on her every 2 hours. Administer medications as scheduled. Keep detailed notes. The last nurse left rather suddenly. She asked too many questions. The way Mrs. Nakamura said, it sounded like a warning. Sophie entered Emma's room that first night at midnight. The cold hit her immediately. She checked the thermostat. 58 degrees. For a sick child? That couldn't be right. She turned it up to 72. Emma was awake, staring at the ceiling with hollow eyes. She looked much younger than 5. Tiny. Fragile. Her skin had a grayish pallor that Sophie had only seen in patients near death. Hi, Emma, Sophie said softly, approaching the bed. I'm Sophie. I'm going to be taking care of you at night. Emma's eyes found hers. Are you going to hurt me too? The question froze Sophie in place. What? No, sweetheart. I'm here to help you feel better. That's what Uncle Victor says. But the treatments hurt. They make me feel worse. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Sophie checked Emma's vital signs. Heart rate low. Blood pressure concerning. Temperature subnormal. She pulled back the blanket to check for edema, and that's when she saw them. Injection marks. Fresh ones. On Emma's inner thighs, hidden where casual observers wouldn't look. Sophie had been a nurse for 7 years. She knew what hiding injection sites meant. She went to check Emma's medication chart against the bottles on the dresser. Nothing matched. The chart said vitamin B complex and iron supplement. But the bottles in the lock cabinet, she picked the simple lock with a hairpin, contained something else entirely. Immunosuppressants. Anticoagulants. Medications that would suppress a child's immune system and prevent blood clotting. Medications that would make a healthy child sick. Medications that would kill a sick child. Sophie's stomach turned. She photographed the bottles with her phone, making sure the labels were clear. She photographed the injection marks. She photographed the medication chart. Then she heard footsteps in the hallway. She quickly replaced everything and moved to the window, pretending to adjust the curtains. The door opened. A man in an expensive suit entered. Mid-40s, tall, with cold gray eyes and the kind of smile that never reached them. You must be the new night nurse, he said. I'm Victor Sterling, Mr. Chin's business partner and Emma's godfather. He moved closer, invading her personal space. How is our little patient tonight? Resting comfortably, Sophie said, keeping her voice steady. Good, good. Victor walked to Emma's bedside, looking down at the child with an expression Sophie couldn't read. Emma's treatment is quite specialized. Very few people understand the methodology. Dr. Webb and I have been managing her care personally since the pediatric specialist gave up. He turned to Sophie. I trust you'll follow the established protocols exactly. No improvisación. No seráis consultaciones. Emma's condition is delicate. Of course, Mr. Sterling. Victor, please. That cold smile again. We're all family here. Emma's well-being is our top priority. He moved toward the door, then paused. The last nurse, Bethany, she had concerns about Emma's treatment. She wanted to bring in outside doctors. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. I believe she took a position overseas. Very suddenly. We haven't heard from her since. The implicit threat hung in the air like smoke. After Victor left, Sophie waited 30 minutes before checking on Emma again. The child was crying silently, tears running down her face. Sweetheart, what's wrong? I want my mommy, Emma whispered. I want my daddy, but daddy can't look at me anymore. I remind him of mommy too much. Where is your father? In his office. He's always in his office. He hasn't come to my room in 3 months. Sophie's heart broke. This child was dying, and her father couldn't face her. Something was very, very wrong in this house. The next morning, Sophie tried to sleep, but couldn't. She kept seeing those injection marks. Those medications. Emma's terrified eyes. She researched the drugs she'd photographed. Cyclosporin, warfarin. In combination, they would systematically destroy a child's body, suppress the immune system, prevent blood clotting, cause organ damage. It would look like a mysterious wasting disease. It would look like grief made physical. It would look like anything except what it was. Murder. But why? Why would anyone poison a 5-year-old child? Sophie needed answers, and she needed them fast. Emma didn't have much time. That evening, she arrived early for her shift. Mrs. Nakamura was surprised to see her. Your shift doesn't start for 2 hours. I know. I thought I'd review Emma's medical history. Get familiar with her case. Sophie smiled her most innocent smile. Mrs. Nakamura hesitated, then nodded. Mr. Chun is in a business meeting downtown. He won't be back until late. Emma's in her room with the tutor. Sophie waited until Mrs. Nakamura left, then headed for Robert Chen's office. The door was unlocked. Inside, the desk was covered with papers, financial reports, legal documents, and photographs. So many photographs of a beautiful woman with Emma's eyes. Diana Chun, Emma's mother. Sophie began searching carefully, replacing everything exactly as she found it. In a locked bottom drawer, she found it. She picked the lock easily. A legal document dated 6 months ago. Last will and testament of Robert Chun. Updated provisions. She read quickly, her horror growing with each line. If Robert died, guardianship of Emma would go to Victor Sterling. If Robert became mentally incapacitated, control of Chin Technologies would transfer to Victor until Emma turned 21. And there, buried in the legal language, was the clause that made everything clear. In the event that Emma Chun predeceases the age of 18, all assets including guardianship trust and controlling shares of Chun Technologies shall transfer to the Sterling Charitable Foundation, managed solely by Victor Sterling. Victor would inherit everything if Emma died. $200 million. A tech company worth billions. Everything. Sophie photographed every page with shaking hands. She heard voices in the hallway. Robert Chun had returned early. Sophie slipped the will back into the drawer, locked it, and moved toward the door. She opened it just as Robert reached for the handle. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chun. I was looking for Mrs. Nakamura. Robert Chun looked like a ghost. Hollow-eyed, thin, wearing clothes that hung loose on his frame. He hadn't shaved in days. The office. His voice was hoarse, confused. I got turned around. This penthouse is so large. Sophie stepped aside. Robert stared at her, then past her at the photographs on his desk. You're Emma's new nurse. Yes, sir. Sophie Rodriguez. How is she? The question came out broken, desperate. She's very weak, Mr. Chun. Her condition seems to be deteriorating. Robert's face crumpled. The doctors say there's nothing more they can do. They've tried everything. Specialists from around the world. Millions of dollars. Nothing works. He moved to his desk, picked up a photo of Diana. My wife died 8 months ago. Galaxy-don. Emma started getting sick right after. The grief, they said. Children can manifest trauma, physically. But what if it's not grief? What if I'm losing her too, and I can't stop it? Sophie saw her opening. Mr. Chun, when was the last time you actually saw Emma? Spent time with her? Robert flinched as if she'd slapped him. I can't. I try, but I can't. She has Diana's eyes. Diana's smile. Every time I look at her, I see my wife dying in that car. I see everything I lost. So I work instead. I throw money at doctors. I sign papers. But I can't go into that room. Mr. Chun, Emma needs her father. Emma needs to live, Robert said quietly. And I can't save her. But Victor can. He's been managing her care, working with Dr. Webb, trying experimental treatments. He's the only one who hasn't given up. Sophie felt ice in her veins. Robert had no idea. He'd handed his daughter to her killer and called it salvation. Sir, have you reviewed Emma's medications personally? Consulted with the doctors about her treatment plan? Robert shook his head. Victor handles all of that. He's a good man. My best friend for 15 years. Emma's godfather. I trust him completely. He set down the photograph. I need to get back to work. There's a board meeting tomorrow. Financial audit. Victor's been handling most of it. I can barely focus these days. After Robert retreated deeper into his office, Sophie stood in the hallway, mind racing. Robert was broken, drowning in grief. He'd given Victor complete control, and Victor was using it to kill Emma and steal everything. But how could she prove it? The will gave motive. The medications gave method. But she needed evidence of intent. She needed to catch Victor in the act. That night, Sophie set up her phone to record in Emma's room. She hid it behind a vase on the dresser, angled toward the medical cabinet and Emma's bed. Then she waited in the adjoining bathroom with the door cracked open. At 10 o'clock, Victor arrived with Dr. Webb. Sophie recognized the doctor from the staff photos. He looked nervous, sweating despite the cool air. Is this really necessary tonight? Dr. Webb asked. Her vitals were very weak this morning. That's exactly why it's necessary, Victor said coldly. We're running out of time. Robert's starting to ask questions. That new nurse, she's too observant. We need to accelerate the timeline. You're talking about increasing the dosage again. Victor, at this rate, she'll go into organ failure within the week. Exactly. Tragic. Sudden. A mystery illness that finally claims her despite our best efforts. Robert will be devastated, but he'll have his work to distract him. And I'll have everything else. Victor prepared a syringe, drawing clear liquid from an unmarked vial. Dr. Webb's hand shook. I can't do this anymore. I became a doctor to save lives, not end them. She's a child. Victor's voice went deadly quiet. You became a doctor, then you gambled away your practice and committed insurance fraud to cover your debts. I have evidence of every fraudulent claim. 37 cases over 2 years. That's 20 years in federal prison, Harrison, where you can do your job, keep your mouth shut, and retire comfortably in 5 years when this is all over. You said it would be gentle. You said she wouldn't suffer. Elite. Victor moved to Emma's bedside. The child was sleeping, finally peaceful. Wake up, Emma. Time for your treatment. Emma's eyes opened, and Sophie saw the fear in them. The resignation. This child knew she was being hurt, but had no way to stop it. Please, Uncle Victor. It makes me so sick. Medicine often does, Victor said, swabbing her inner thigh with alcohol. But it helps you. Your father wants you to get better. Daddy doesn't visit anymore, Emma whispered, because you remind him of your mother. It hurts him to look at you. But don't worry. Soon you won't hurt anyone anymore. Victor inserted the needle. Emma whimpered, but didn't cry out. She'd learned that crying didn't help. Sophie forced herself to remain hidden, to let the recording capture everything. Every word, every action, evidence that would stand up in court. But watching that needle go into Emma's leg, watching the child's face contort in pain, it took everything in her not to burst out and stop it. Victor withdrew the needle and pressed a cotton ball against the injection site. Double dose tonight. Her body's building resistance. We need to overwhelm her system. Dr. Webb looked like he might be sick. That amount could cause immediate kidney failure. Then we'll call it a sudden complication. Natural progression of her mysterious illness. Robert will never question it. He can't even look at her. Victor disposed of the syringe in a sharps container he'd brought with him. You're scheduled for another visit in 3 days. But I don't think we'll need it. This should finish things. After they left, Sophie counted to 100 before emerging. Emma was curled in a ball, shivering despite the blankets. Emma, sweetheart. Sophie gathered the child into her arms. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You saw. Emma's voice was barely audible. I saw, and I recorded it. Emma, I need you to be brave for a little longer. Can you do that for me? Emma nodded against her shoulder. Are you going to tell Daddy? I'm going to save you. I promise. Sophie held her closer. Your Uncle Victor is a bad man. He's been making you sick on purpose. But we're going to stop him. Why would he hurt me? He's supposed to love me. Sophie had no answer that would make sense to a 5-year-old. How do you explain greed to a child? How do you explain that someone would kill her for money? Some people care more about things than about people. But your daddy loves you. He's just lost right now. We're going to help him find his way back. Sophie spent the next 2 days gathering more evidence. She copied files from Victor's briefcase when he left it unattended. Financial records showing the embezzlement. $47 million siphoned from Chun Technologies over 3 years. She found Diana's old laptop in a storage closet, managed to access it with Emma's birthday as the password. Diana had been investigating the missing money. Her last entry was dated 2 days before her death. Victor's been stealing from the company. I have proof. Meeting with the board on Friday to present evidence. Robert doesn't know yet. I want to be certain before I destroy his friendship. Diana never made it to that meeting. Her car went off the road Thursday night. Police ruled an accident. Rainy conditions. Sharp curve. No weaknesses. But Sophie knew better now. Diana had discovered the embezzlement. Victor killed her to silence her. Then he started positioning himself to inherit everything through Emma. Sophie tried talking to Robert again, but he was unreachable, lost in his grief and work. Victor had isolated him perfectly. Every time Sophie approached, Mrs. Nakamura intercepted. Mr. Chun is in meetings. Mr. Chun is not to be disturbed. Mr. Chun has given instructions that all of Emma's care goes through Mr. Sterling. On the third night, Sophie was reviewing her evidence when her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Sophie Rodriguez. This is Detective Lisa Park, San Francisco Police, Special Victims Unit. I received an anonymous tip about potential child abuse at your place of employment. Can you tell me about Emma Chen's condition? Sophie's heart raced. Who called you? I can't disclose that. But the caller claimed a child was being systematically poisoned. That's a serious allegation. Is there any truth to it? Yes. All of it. I have evidence. Videos, photographs, financial records. But you need to move fast. The man doing this, Victor Sterling, he accelerated the timeline. Emma doesn't have much time left. I need you to send me everything you have. Right now. And I need you to keep that child safe until I can get there with backup and a warrant. Sophie sent the files while they talked. Detective, there's something else. Emma's mother, Diana Chun, died 8 months ago in a car accident. I think Victor killed her too. She discovered he was embezzling from the family company. I'll look into it. Sophie, listen to me carefully. You're in danger too. Victor knows you're suspicious. The last nurse who worked there, Bethany Morrison, she's been missing for 6 weeks. We found her car at the airport, but no record of her leaving the country. If Victor feels threatened, he'll act. I'm not leaving Emma. I'm not asking you to. But be careful. I'm 40 minutes away. Can you stay out of sight until then? Sophie promised she would. But 20 minutes later, Emma's monitor alarm went off. Sophie ran to her room. Emma was convulsing, foam at her mouth, eyes rolled back. The thermostat had been turned down to 45 degrees. Someone had been in the room. Someone had given her another dose. Sophie hit the emergency call button and started seizure protocols. She turned Emma on her side, protected her head, timed the seizure. 90 seconds. Too long. Emma went limp, breathing shallow and labored. Her lips were turning blue. Sophie grabbed her phone and dialed 911. That's where he came in. I need an ambulance now. Child not breathing. Suspected poisoning. She started CPR. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Come on, Emma. Stay with me. You promised to be brave. Stay with me. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Emma's chest rose and fell with Sophie's breaths, but she wasn't breathing on her own. The door burst open. Robert Chun stood there, frozen in shock. Behind him, Mrs. Nakamura was crying. I called him, the house manager said. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I saw Mr. Sterling go into Emma's room 20 minutes ago. When he left, he was smiling. Smiling while that baby was dying. Robert dropped to his knees beside the bed. Emma. Oh God, Emma. He took his daughter's tiny hand. I'm here, baby. Daddy's here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I left you. Sophie continued compressions. Mr. Chun, your daughter has been poisoned. Victor's been giving her immunosuppressants and anticoagulants for months. He's trying to kill her so he can inherit your company. Robert's face went white. No, Victor wouldn't. He's my friend. He's been trying to save her. He's been killing her. I have video evidence. Recordings of him administering the drugs. He killed your wife too. Diana discovered he was embezzling. She was going to expose him. So he cut her brake lines and made it look like an accident. You're lying. But Robert's voice had no conviction. Deep down, he knew. He'd known something was wrong, but couldn't face it. Sophie showed him the video on her phone. Victor's voice came through clearly. We're running out of time. We need to accelerate the timeline. At this rate, she'll go into organ failure within the week. Robert watched his best friend, his daughter's godfather, poison his child. Watch him admit to murder. His face crumpled. What have I done? I trusted him. I gave him everything. I let him kill my family. Paramedics burst through the door. Sophie stepped back as they took over. 5-year-old female, suspected drug overdose, seizure activity, respiratory distress. Possible immunosuppressants and anticoagulants. Multiple doses over extended period. She rattled off everything they needed to know while they worked on Emma. They intubated her, started 4 fluids, loaded her onto the gurney. We're taking her to San Francisco General. Pediatric ICU. Are you family? I'm her father. Robert stood on shaking legs. I'm coming with her. Sir, you can follow in your car. We need room to work. No. Robert's voice was stronger now. I left her alone once. I'm not doing it again. I'm riding with my daughter. The lead paramedic nodded. They rushed Emma out, Robert climbing into the ambulance behind them. Sophie started to follow when a hand grabbed her arm. Victor stood in the hallway, his face a mask of fury. What did you do? I saved her life. The police are coming. It's over, Victor. You have no idea what you've done. That child was supposed to die quietly. Instead, you've made a mess of everything. His grip tightened, fingers digging into her arm. Do you know what happens to people who mess up my plans? Asked Diana. Oh wait, you can't. She's dead. You're admitting it? You killed her. Diana was collateral damage. She should have minded her own business. The company was failing when I joined it. I built it into what it is today. That money was mine. Diana wanted to give it all away to charity. Can you imagine? Billions of dollars to feed starving children in countries that don't matter. I worked too hard to let that happen. So you murdered her and then started poisoning her daughter. Emma was never supposed to suffer. The medications should have worked faster. Gentle decline, mysterious illness. But the child has her mother's stubbornness. She kept fighting. So I had to increase the doses. Make it more aggressive. That's on her, not me. Sophie tried to pull away, but Victor was stronger. The police know everything. I sent them all my evidence. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. Evidence can disappear. Witnesses can have accidents. You think you're the first person to try to stop me? Bethany, the last nurse, she figured out too. She's buried in the foundation of a building project I oversee in Oakland. No one will ever find her. Victor pulled a syringe from his pocket. The same medications I've been giving Emma. Massive dose. You'll have a seizure, stop breathing. By the time the paramedics come back, you'll be dead. Tragique accident. Nurse overdosed on drugs she stole from her patient. Sophie saw her death in his eyes. But before he could inject her, Mrs. Nakamura appeared with a fire extinguisher and swung it at Victor's head. He dropped like a stone. I've worked for bad people before, the house manager said, breathing hard. But I won't watch another young woman die. Bethany was my niece. Detective Park arrived minutes later with 4 officers. They found Victor unconscious on the floor, Sophie holding the syringe he'd tried to use on her, and Mrs. Nakamura standing guard with her fire extinguisher. Detective Park? Thank God. He just confessed to everything. Diana's murder. Bethany Morrison's murder. The embezzlement. All of it. Mrs. Nakamura witnessed it. I heard everything, Mrs. Nakamura confirmed. I was too frightened to speak before, but not anymore. I'll testify to everything. They arrested Victor, read him his rights while he was still groggy. Detective Park pulled Sophie aside. You did good work. Dangerous, but good. That video evidence is solid. Combined with his confession just now and the financial records you provided, we have him cold. He's never seeing daylight again. What about Diana Chen's case? Her car accident. We're reopening it as a homicide investigation. With Victor's confession and the motive you've established, we'll build a murder case. He's looking at life without parole on multiple counts. At the hospital, Sophie found Robert in the pediatric ICU waiting room. He looked like he'd aged 20 years in the past hour. How is she? Sophie asked. They're running toxicology screens, trying to counteract the drugs in her system. They said the next 24 hours are critical. If she survives the night, she has a chance. Robert's voice broke. I did this to her. I was so lost in my own pain that I couldn't see hers. I handed my daughter to a monster and called him a savior. You were grieving. Victor exploited that. That's not an excuse. I'm her father. I should have protected her. Instead, I abandoned her when she needed me most. Tears ran down his face. Diana would be so ashamed of me. Diana would want you to fight for Emma now. To be the father Emma needs. Robert nodded, wiping his eyes. Tell me everything. I need to know what he did to my family. Sophie told him. All of it. The embezzlement. Diana's investigation. The brake lines cut on a rainy night. Emma's systematic poisoning. Victor's plan to inherit everything. The will that made it all legal. Robert listened, his expression hardening with each revelation. 15 years, he said quietly. I trusted him for 15 years. He ate at my table. He was Emma's godfather. He held her when she was born. And all that time, he was just waiting for the right moment to take everything. He's going to prison for the rest of his life. Both murders, attempted murder, conspiracy, embezzlement. Detective Park says it's one of the most clear-cut cases she's ever seen. A doctor emerged from the ICU. Mr. Chun, your daughter is stable. We've identified the drugs in her system and started treatment. Cyclosporin and warfarin, extremely high doses. Another few hours and her organs would have failed completely. But you got her here in time. Can I see her? She's unconscious. We've induced a medical coma to let her body heal. But yes, you can sit with her. Robert grabbed Sophie's hand. Come with me. Please. You save her life. You should be there when she wakes up. They entered Emma's room together. The little girl looked impossibly small on the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and monitors. But her color was better. Her breathing steady. Robert sat beside her and took her hand. I'm here, baby girl. Daddy's here. And I'm never leaving you again. I promise. Sophie watched him stroke Emma's hair, saw the love and guilt and determination in his face. This was a man who'd lost his way, but was finding it again. Through the worst tragedy, through betrayal and murder and grief, he was coming back to what mattered most. I want to do something, Robert said suddenly. When Emma recovers, I want to start a foundation. In Diana's name. To help children who are suffering in silence. To train people to recognize the signs of abuse. To give them resources to fight back. He looked at Sophie. I want you to run it. You saw what everyone else missed. You fought when it cost you everything. That's what we need. More people like you. Mr. Chun, I'm just a nurse. You're more than that. You're the reason my daughter is alive. You're the reason Victor will face justice. You're the reason I woke up before I lost everything that mattered. Robert's voice was firm. Think about it. Please. Emma will need you when she wakes up. And there are other children out there right now, suffering like she did. We can help them. Over the next 3 days, Emma slowly improved. The drugs cleared from her system. Her organs began recovering. On the fourth day, the doctors brought her out of the medical coma. Robert was there, holding her hand, when her eyes opened. "Daddy." Her voice was weak but clear. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. You came back. I never should have left. I was afraid, Emma. Afraid that looking at you would hurt too much, because you remind me of Mommy. But I was wrong. You're not a reminder of what I lost. You're everything I still have. Everything that matters. And I almost lost you because I was too much of a coward to see it." Emma's small hand squeezed his. "Sophie saved me." "Yes, she did. She's a hero." "Where is she?" Sophie stepped into view. "Right here, sweetheart." Emma smiled, the first real smile Sophie had seen from her. "You kept your promise. You said you'd save me. You kept yours too. You were brave." The doctor entered with test results. Emma's blood work is normalizing. Kidney and liver function improving. She's going to make a full recovery, Mr. Chun. It'll take time, but she'll be healthy again. Robert broke down sobbing, clutching Emma's hand. "Thank you. Thank God. Thank you." Detective Park visited that afternoon with updates. Victor Sterling has been formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, conspiracy, embezzlement of $47 million, and multiple counts of fraud. Dr. Harrison Webb is cooperating fully. He's pleading guilty to attempted murder and conspiracy in exchange for testimony against Victor. He'll serve 15 years and lose his medical license permanently. "What about Diana's case?" Robert asked. "We recovered Victor's computer, found emails between him and a mechanic he paid $20,000 to cut your wife's brake lines. The mechanic is cooperating too. Victor's going away forever, Mr. Chun. Multiple life sentences without possibility of parole." "Good." Robert's voice was cold. "I want him to spend every day for the rest of his life knowing he failed. That Emma lived. But he lost everything." 6 months later, Sophie stood in the bright, modern offices of the Diana Chin Foundation for Child Advocacy. The walls were covered with photos of smiling children. Children they'd helped. Children they'd saved. The foundation trained caregivers, teachers, and medical professionals to recognize signs of abuse. They funded investigations. They provided legal support for families fighting to protect their children. In 6 months, they'd helped 73 children escape dangerous situations. Sophie's phone rang. Another case. A teacher calling about a student with unexplained injuries. "Tell me everything," Sophie said, pulling up a case file. "Start from the beginning." The office door opened and Emma ran in, healthy and vibrant. She was 6 now, full of energy and life. Her hair had grown back thick and shiny. Her skin glowed. She looked like any normal child, not the dying girl Sophie had first met. "Sophie, look what I drew." She held up a picture of Sophie, Robert, and herself, all holding hands. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Robert followed his daughter in, carrying coffee. He'd changed too. Still successful, still running Chin Technologies, but he left the office at 5 every day now. He coached Emma's soccer team. He read her bedtime stories. He learned that success meant nothing if you lost the people you loved. "How many today?" he asked Sophie. 3 new cases. 2 look serious. I'm heading out to assess them personally. "Be careful." "Always am." Sophie gathered her things. "Emma, I'll see you Thursday for a lunch date, okay?" "Promise." "Promise." As Sophie drove to her first appointment, she thought about how much had changed. Victor Sterling was in maximum security prison, serving multiple life sentences. He'd tried to appeal, claiming the evidence against him was obtained illegally. The judge had laughed him out of court. Dr. Webb was serving his sentence at a minimum security facility and had written letters to Robert and Emma apologizing for his cowardice. Robert had burned them unread. Mrs. Nakamura had retired, but not before giving a devastating testimony at Victor's trial about Bethany Morrison, her niece, who Victor had murdered and buried. The construction site was excavated. Bethany's body was found exactly where Victor had bragged it would be. That additional murder charge sealed his fate. But Sophie didn't focus on the darkness anymore. She focused on the light. On children like Emma who survived because someone paid attention. Because someone refused to look away. Because someone fought when fighting was hard and dangerous and costly. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Just a string of heart emojis and a photo of her and Robert making silly faces. Sophie smiled. This was why she did it. This was what mattered. She arrived at the first house, knocked on the door, and prepared to fight for another child who needed someone to notice. Someone to care. Someone to stand up. The fight was never easy. It was exhausting and heartbreaking and sometimes terrifying. But Sophie had learned something important that night. She saved Emma's life. Love wasn't always gentle. Sometimes love meant refusing to look away when everyone else did. Sometimes love meant standing alone against powerful people who wanted you silent. Sometimes love meant being willing to risk everything for someone who couldn't fight for themselves. And there were children everywhere who needed that kind of love, who needed someone brave enough to see them, to hear them, to fight for them. Sophie knocked again, louder this time. A woman answered, defensive and frightened. Sophie smiled her most reassuring smile. Hi, I'm Sophie Rodriguez from the Dianachin Foundation. I understand you might need some help. Can we talk? The woman hesitated, then opened the door wider. Please, Kumin, it's my son. I think something's wrong, but everyone says I'm overreacting. Tell me everything, Sophie said, stepping inside. I am listening. And she always would be, because every child deserves someone who would notice, someone who would believe them, someone who would fight. Emma had been saved because Sophie refused to look away. Now it was Sophie's mission to teach others to do the same. Victor Sterling had tried to destroy a family through silence and manipulation. But his evil had created something beautiful instead. A foundation built on the principle that children matter, that their suffering should never be invisible, that someone must always be watching, always be listening, always be ready to act. Sophie looked at the frightened little boy peeking around the corner, saw the marks on his arms that his mother had noticed, and felt that familiar determination settle in her chest. Come here, sweetheart, she said gently. Let's talk about what's been happening, and then we're going to fix it. Together. Because that's what love does. It pays attention. It stands up. It fights back. No matter the cost. If you've been moved by Emma's story, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling us about the heroes in your life who refuse to look away. And if you know a child who's suffering in silence, be their Sophie. Be the one who notices. Be the one who acts. Because every child deserves someone brave enough to fight for them. Thank you for watching. And remember, the greatest courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, persistent. It's choosing to see what others miss. Choosing to care when caring is costly. That's real love. That's real heroism.